Right, and those were the closing statements. Now, Harris has said that we're not going back and we have to move forward from all these disparaging comments, which she says has been Trump's tactic throughout. What was the key takeaway for you, Jyotsna?
To be honest, I felt like Trump, he focused on issues that he has always been strong on immigration, on economy, and he has been doing really well in the polls as well regarding those issues. And I feel like, I'm not sure how Kamala did respond to what she did, but was she able to establish what her plan is? It's kind of ambiguous on that part.
Absolutely. We've seen some defense on policy issues, but we're still not very clear on her position, even though she does say that her values have not changed, which is a statement we've been hearing for quite a while now. All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by our correspondent, Susan Tehrani. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. Now, we've seen defense on policy issues. We've heard some disparaging comments, some incendiary statements. It's been quite a mix. What were the key takeaways for you, Susan?
Yeah, this was a very interesting debate to watch because you had one candidate, which is Kamala Harris, the vice president, who was overly prepared. It was clear that she had rehearsed her answers, even though to questions that had nothing to do with the answers that she was giving really precise answers that were very rehearsed. And then you had Donald Trump, who some might argue was a bit underprepared for this debate. Maybe he was cocky, maybe he was too sure of himself because he's done something like this before. So Harris's answers, while we can go deep into them and talk about them policy-wise, while some of them were even non-answers, they came across as being more clear-cut and directed rather than the former president, which we're used to, where he talks about many different things at the same time. For example, the economy and the border, the issue of abortion and crime. So, it was an interesting mix. I don't think it'll move the needle in any way for those that supported Harris or supported Donald Trump. We'll have to see how independent voters see this. But a very short preliminary poll by the Democrats during the debate said that a lot of viewers viewed Harris favorably when she spoke directly to the camera and continuously, at least 2 or 3 times I counted, said that I'm going to be a president for all of Americans.
Right. And it's great that you mentioned that, because Kamala Harris, we know that a lot of people wanted to know who she is, and especially the sliver of these kind of voters who are not sure who to vote for. Was Kamala Harris able to show what she stands for?
I think you guys made a very, very valid point, and that's the fact that voters will go away from this debate still a bit uncertain. She tried to say that she stands for something, but we couldn't really pinpoint what that is, especially if it's different from President Biden. After all, it was a very challenging thing to do. She's an incumbent, she's the vice president, but policy-wise, she wasn't really able to differentiate herself from President Biden, besides saying directly, quote, "I'm not President Biden, I'm not Donald Trump either. I'm a president for a new generation." Well, how? How are you different? And where do Americans stand if they do elect you?
Right, Susan, that was what we were discussing as well, that her position on a lot of the policy issues weren't as clear as we were hoping for them to be. And of course, we were also speaking to our guest earlier who had spoken about how Trump seems to always get away even after making such outlandish statements. What do you have to say about that? We've heard some rather bizarre statements from him in this debate as well. Do you think that's just a tactic?
I'm trying to think about the bizarre statements just because he had a few off-the-cuff statements. I don't think it's a tactic. I just think it is who he is. The questions were also posed in a very curious way towards the former president. I mean, I think a lot of people, journalists, we would agree on that. But the thing that perhaps critics will say is the former president fell into the trap of things that he was sensitive about, that his advisors had hoped he wouldn't, by Kamala Harris's comments. He took the bait on the crowd sizes during his campaign, and he took the bait on a number of issues where You know, he could have been calm and collected. The fact that, you know, he mentioned that she wasn't black, he was good in the beginning, and then, you know, he sort of veered off saying that she said this, he said that. So I think she knew how to play those pinpoints, and that's why perhaps we heard some of those off the cuff and outlandish comments from the former president.
Right. Now, before we let you go, Susan, a really simple question. Who do you think came out as a winner in this debate?
I was afraid you would ask me that question. I'm gonna wait and see. We're gonna wait and see. I do have my thoughts. I think you know, the Trump camp is gonna have a hard time trying to justify why he sort of veered off on a lot of issues that he could have just pinpointed towards the current administration and their lack of policies on, notably the economy, immigration, you know, foreign policy, Afghanistan. But then again, on the other hand, for the undecided voter, I don't know if they got the answer that they wanted with Kamala Harris on policy. So, you know, that's why analysis will let the viewers and the voters decide. But, you know, I think it'll be interesting next few days and weeks to see where America stands. It's going to be very tight.
All right, Susan, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we'll be analyzing all that comes after this.